In trying to prove a lithium-ion battery claim, injury claim, or in this case a death claim as well, we actually hired experts to take these individual battery packs and see what happens to them when they're exposed to water. Are they waterproof? Are there things in there that can protect the battery cells from water? Is there a system within the actual battery that can dampen energy in particular situations to make them safer? And we hired experts to actually look into this stuff and run the test for us. And I can tell you, when we first got involved in the case, we didn't know that it was going to work. We took the individual battery packs, the experts did, recreated the simulations from our particular case, same time, same temperature, same type of salt water that was used in our particular case, and then exposed these battery packs, similar battery packs, same battery packs as the one we had in our case, and exposed them to salt water and just saw what happened. We had our experts drop them into the water, again, same temperature, same salinity of the water, and then they took them out, put them into an explosion chamber, and just watched them. And we had 4 different battery packs. Every single one of them blew up, went into fire, went into thermal runaway. We had the entire thing recorded, and I think at one of these stages we'll actually show those recordings. But in any event, that was able to show us that these battery packs, number one, aren't safe. Number two, can lead to the type of fire that actually happened in our particular case. We went a little bit deeper on that too. We thought, maybe there's things involved in these battery packs that keep them safe in some way. Maybe they are waterproof to a degree at least. Well, I can tell you with my own eyes, we actually saw these things dropped into salt water and brought out just a couple of minutes later, and there was water coming out everywhere. And the water was bringing out black soot almost. That was parts of the individual battery cells basically coming out as the water came out of the battery pack. And it told us that the things aren't waterproof at all. Water just flows right into the actual battery pack and actually hits right onto the individual battery cells. It's a process called wetting of the batteries. And that's really where your problem happens. These battery cells get hit with water. Water's bad enough. Salt water, again, is much worse. And then people go about their normal day not realizing that this can be a significant danger. And that's a lot of what our case hinged upon. They didn't want to, and nobody wanted to admit that they committed some sort of a really bad problem that led to injury and death. But what they really needed to understand was they weren't warning people of the dangers that were involved with these lithium-ion batteries and if they're exposed to salt water. And what I'm getting at is, if you're going to have something like this, all right, you need to warn people about the dangers of it and the specific dangers of it. It's not good enough to say, hey, these batteries can be dangerous. Yeah, we all know that. But you need to let people know that if they're exposed to salt water, here's what you do. And that didn't happen in our case. Our family didn't realize that, hey, if their battery pack for the bike is exposed to salt water, they didn't know what to do. They thought the right thing to do was to take it apart, take it out of the bike, dry it off and let it sit. Didn't try to use it, didn't try to store it anywhere that was unsafe, didn't try to recharge it, just tried to let it sit and dry off. That seems like the reasonable thing to do. Well, it was the wrong thing to do. What you really need to do if you have a lithium-ion battery and it's exposed to salt water is don't use it, don't recharge it, don't even store it in your garage or your boat or your car, because you can get a fire like the one we had in our case that can cause massive, massive damage. What you're really supposed to do is call your local county officials. They should have a process in place to dispose of these things safely. That's what you want to do, and you want to do it as soon as possible. In our case, the problem that we had was, number one, that their product caused the fire that caused massive damage and death. That was problem number one for the other side. The other part of it was they didn't warn people of the dangers of their dangerous product. If you're a company here in Florida or in the United States and you're producing a product, whatever it might be, that product might have certain dangers that are associated with it. Dangers that can't be accounted for. You can't make it any safer. Any company here in the state of Florida and in the United States has to make a product as safe as the current technology will allow, all right? But even the best current technology may not be able to make something completely safe. And that's what we have going on with lithium-ion batteries. You can only make them so safe. And what you need to do after that is, if they're still going to be dangerous, you've made them as safe as you can. If they're still going to be dangerous, what you have to do is warn people of it. And in our particular case, they didn't warn people how dangerous salt water can be, number one. And then more importantly, critically, as far as I saw it, they didn't warn people what to do if your battery pack is exposed to water. If you went back to, and salt water, if you went back to the manual, if you went back to the labels, it didn't tell you what to do. So if you have a bike and it falls into salt water, or you have a battery pack that's exposed to salt water, and these bikes are drifting all around the beaches and marinas and things like that. If you're exposed to salt water like that, these companies need to tell people this is how you deal with it. Get that battery pack out of there, dispose of it immediately, call your local county officials. In our case, they didn't do any of that stuff. If my client and his family knew that this was the appropriate way to get rid of these batteries when they're exposed to salt water, they would have done that. They wouldn't have been injured. Their family wouldn't have suffered a death. It was a horrible situation. But that's some of the stuff that you're seeing with lithium-ion batteries. If you pay attention to the internet, you pay attention to the news, you're seeing a lot more of these type of accidents. Maybe not as horrific as the one I just described, but you're seeing a lot of scenarios where Teslas with lithium-ion batteries, big lithium-ion batteries, get exposed to salt water, let's say in a storm or a flooding event, taking out garages, blowing up and damaging houses. You're also seeing individual bikes and scooters, the batteries blowing up as well. If you really pay attention, you even hear about small lithium-ion battery cells that are in phones and laptops that are also leading to fires and things like that if they're damaged. So people really need to be careful with them. I'm very careful with them. I try to stay away from them as much as I can. The technology, I believe, will get better and safer, but right now it can be dangerous. So a couple of things to keep in mind on lithium-ion batteries. We're going to have more on this, and I think what we're going to be able to do is show what happens once these lithium-ion batteries do explode and do go into thermal runaway, what's left. It's really interesting stuff.